A heartless killer hides in plain sight. It's a respected doctor, murdering his own patients. Dr. Harold Shipman's secret rampage lasts for decades.
He'd been murdering people for years and getting away with it.
He was the local doctor, the kind you'd trust with your life. He lived in a quiet English town, in a modest home that seemed as unremarkable as the man himself. But behind those brick walls, Harold Shipman was hiding one of the darkest secrets in medical history. Hyde, Greater Manchester, a small working-class town, the kind where people know each other's names and neighbors still wave across the street. And tucked into one of its many quiet roads sat the home of Dr. Harold Shipman, a man who, for more than 2 decades, lived among the people he would one day horrify. The house itself wasn't anything extraordinary. A red brick, semi-detached property lined with a short garden wall and a narrow driveway. The kind of home that blends right in. Nothing flashy, just everyday British suburbia. And that's what made it so chilling. Shipman moved into the home with his wife, Primrose, and their 4 children during the late 1970s, when he began working as a general practitioner at the Donnybrook Medical Center. From the outside, he was the ideal family man, smart, well-spoken, always punctual. He wore a tie, carried his leather briefcase, and walked with the calm confidence of a trusted professional. But inside that house, something much darker was taking shape. Neighbors described the Shipmans as private but polite. You wouldn't see them hosting barbecues or chatting much over the fence, but they weren't antisocial either. Their children went to local schools. Primrose was often seen running errands in town, and Harold, well, he was simply the doctor. No one could have imagined that this was the same man who, between 1975 and 1998, would go on to kill over 200 of his patients, right under the noses of an unsuspecting community. What's most unsettling is how ordinary his home life seemed. He wasn't reclusive, he wasn't flashy, and there were no wild parties or police calls. Just a man who came home each night to dinner with his family, watched television, paid his bills on time, and then went back to work, where he killed again. His home was his sanctuary, a place where he could maintain the illusion of normalcy while carrying out crimes that would later shock the entire world. After his arrest in 1998, the home became a focal point for media and public curiosity. Journalists and locals gathered outside, cameras flashing, trying to understand how such horror could have hidden behind those quiet curtains. Police searched the house thoroughly, uncovering stolen jewelry from some of his victims tucked away in drawers, a haunting reminder that the line between his professional and personal life was far thinner than anyone had realized. To the people of Hyde, Harold Shipman wasn't just a doctor, he was their doctor. The kind you'd call if you had a cough or a more serious health scare. The kind who showed up to appointments in a crisp shirt, with a calm voice and a confident diagnosis. It was the late 1970s when he joined Donnybrook Medical Center, and it didn't take long for the community to embrace him. His patients were mostly elderly, many of them living alone. They trusted him implicitly. He made house calls, knew their families, and even delivered their prescriptions personally. It was that exact trust that made him so dangerous. While Shipman cultivated the image of a calm, competent GP, he was methodically choosing his victims and ending their lives using lethal doses of diamorphine, the very same drug used to ease pain in terminally ill patients. But he didn't always work in secrecy. In fact, some of his victims died in their own homes, sometimes in front of family members who had no reason to question his explanations. After all, he was the doctor. And when someone elderly passed away in their sleep, wasn't that just part of life? That was the brilliance and horror of Shipman's methods. He didn't sneak through the shadows. He didn't need to. He had authority. He had a white coat, a stethoscope, and the credibility of years of service. When a patient died, he would often be the one to sign the death certificate. No second opinions, no autopsies. And when he offered to help with the funeral arrangements or write a note for the family, it was seen as kindness, not manipulation. Back home, his lifestyle remained shockingly normal. He had 4 children, a wife who stood by him until the very end, and a steady routine. Each morning, he'd leave the house and walk to work, or drive the short distance to patients' homes. His wife, Primrose, was deeply religious and proud of her husband's accomplishments. She believed in him, without question. Even after his conviction, she remained loyal, refusing to accept the horrifying truth that was laid out in court. That loyalty only further blurred the line between the man and the monster. Shipman's private life was tightly controlled, almost obsessively so. He wasn't particularly warm or outgoing, but he was never aggressive or inappropriate. He managed his home with the same precision that he managed his practice. Quietly, orderly, and without suspicion. He paid his taxes, mowed his lawn, and drove a sensible car. There were no grand displays of wealth or unusual purchases. Everything about him whispered normal, which is exactly what allowed him to fly under the radar for so long. Even when suspicions started to emerge in the mid-90s about the number of deaths linked to his patients, Shipman deflected them with his usual calm demeanor. The General Medical Council investigated him for some irregularities with cremation forms, but nothing came of it. He kept working. He kept killing. His record was clean, his reputation intact. What finally brought him down was one death too many: the passing of Kathleen Grundy, a healthy and active 81-year-old former mayor who had no known illnesses. When her daughter, a lawyer, found out that her mother had supposedly left her entire estate to Shipman in a handwritten will, she knew something was off. Investigation began, Kathleen's body was exhumed, and the truth unraveled. Detectives quickly linked the forged will to Shipman, and upon searching his home, they found damning evidence: medical records, typed notes, and a typewriter matching the one used to fake the will. But perhaps most horrifying was the discovery of jewelry and keepsakes from several deceased patients stashed away inside his house. Items their families had believed buried or lost forever. When the case went to trial in 2000, the world finally saw the true face of Harold Shipman. He was convicted of 15 murders, but is believed to have killed as many as 250 people, making him one of the most prolific serial killers in recorded history. His method wasn't violence or chaos. It was manipulation, trust, and routine. He didn't need a weapon. He had a prescription pad. And all the while, he'd return home to this same red brick house in Hyde, to a home that held family dinners, children's laughter, and secrets darker than anyone could imagine. A home that looked like yours or mine. A home that had become the quiet headquarters of Britain's deadliest doctor. In the late 1990s, the walls of Harold Shipman's carefully constructed life had begun to crack. After years of suspicion-free murders disguised as routine deaths, it was the unexpected passing of a vibrant elderly woman and her equally suspicious will that finally raised alarms. Kathleen Grundy's daughter, lawyer herself, knew something wasn't right. Her mother wasn't frail or ailing. She had been active, alert, and most importantly, never the kind of woman to rewrite her will and leave everything to her doctor. That forged will was the first domino in a chain that would shatter the illusion of Hyde's most trusted physician. As the investigation gained momentum, police began looking deeper, not just into Kathleen Grundy's death, but into Shipman's patient records, cremation forms, and past medical decisions. When they obtained a warrant to search his home, the carefully managed world of Harold Shipman began to unravel right there in his living room. The search of his home was both chilling and revealing. Inside the quiet, modest house on Market Street in Hyde, authorities discovered handwritten notes detailing patient deaths, falsified records, and an assortment of jewelry and heirlooms belonging to deceased women, items he had taken from their bodies after administering fatal doses of diamorphine. Items that families thought had been buried or had simply disappeared. It wasn't a chaotic scene. The house was meticulously organized, just like Shipman himself. But every drawer they opened peeled back another layer of horror. In 1999, Shipman had been charged with 15 counts of murder and 1 count of forgery. His trial began in October 1999 and became one of the most watched cases in UK history. People couldn't wrap their heads around the idea a family doctor, someone so trusted, had been killing his patients for over 2 decades. The courtroom painted a picture of a man who had lived 2 lives, one as a dedicated GP and the other as a cold, methodical killer who had exploited his position for power and control. Shipman showed no emotion during the trial. He denied everything, sat quietly, stared forward. His calm demeanor, which once gave his patients comfort, now chilled the courtroom. Witnesses included family members of victims, former colleagues, and forensic experts who confirmed that each of the 15 patients had died from overdoses of diamorphine, doses only Shipman could have administered. In January 2000, he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison with a whole life tariff. He would never be released. Even after his conviction, investigators suspected that Shipman's body count was much higher. A government inquiry launched after the trial. The Shipman inquiry estimated that he may have killed over 250 people, most of them elderly women, many of them alone and vulnerable. The inquiry went on for years, combing through thousands of documents, death certificates, and witness statements. The final conclusion? Shipman wasn't just a murderer. He was one of the most prolific serial killers the world had ever known. His home in Hyde, once a place of family dinners and birthday parties, was never the same again. After the trial, the home was put under heavy scrutiny by the press. Crowds gathered outside, staring up at the unassuming red brick house that had harbored such a monster. The town of Hyde itself changed. For many residents, the community felt forever marked by the betrayal of a man they had once trusted completely. Patients who had seen him for years were left with a sickening question. Why wasn't it me? Shipman was sent to HM Prison Wakefield, known for housing some of Britain's most dangerous offenders. He spent his days in relative isolation, rarely speaking to other inmates. He never confessed, never expressed remorse, never gave any real insight into his motives. But there were theories. Some believed he had a god complex, that he enjoyed controlling life and death. Others speculated that he felt a twisted sense of mercy, choosing when patients should die based on his own moral code. Whatever the truth was, only Shipman knew for sure, and he took those answers with him. On January 13, 2004, one day before his 58th birthday, Harold Shipman was found dead in his prison cell. He had hanged himself with bedsheets. His suicide sparked public outrage. Not because people mourned him, but because many felt he had taken the coward's way out. Families of victims wanted answers, confessions, closure, and now they would never get them. Shipman's death didn't end the story, it only intensified the aftermath. The UK government launched a full review of the medical certification process, prescribing practices, and patient death reporting. The trust once blindly placed in general practitioners been shaken to its core. In its wake, entire systems had to be rebuilt to ensure nothing like this could ever happen again. His home in Hyde was eventually sold. The family long gone. The curtains replaced. But for many in the town and across the country, it became more than just a house. It became a symbol of how evil can wear a smile, carry a stethoscope, and live quietly right next door. Today, the legacy of Harold Shipman is a warning that even the people we trust the most can carry secrets darker than we dare to imagine. His life, his house, and his horrifying crimes remain one of the most disturbing chapters in modern medical and criminal history. What are your thoughts on this? Let us know in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel.